we've been accused of being a cult. I think now it's more a badge of honor. We would say, hey, we used to be called a cult. And this was because people were like, this is what's happening right within that group. And how does it work? But I think and this is what I see a lot from members when we ask them, okay, why do you engage with dScoop, or what is it that you get out of the event? And it is that leaning in where they come not with an expectation of walking away with a full list of business, but walking away with people that can help them grow in different areas in their business.
In a world where brands compete for attention, where innovation meets strategy, and where storytelling drives success, join Ken Theriot and Randy Kessler as they dive into the world of branding, business, and beyond. Joining us on today's episode is Peter van Teeseling. He is the executive director at dScoop and our second European guest in a row, right, Ken? We had Jade from London on last time. So how's it going today, Peter?
It's going well, Randy. Thank you guys for having me.
Yes, very excited to have you on and to learn more about dScoop, learn about you, Peter, and what's in store for 2026.
Absolutely. And we can get right into it with a quick intro. So Peter, maybe share with the audience your background, how you got to be where you are today, and then maybe explain what dScoop is, because I think a lot of our listeners have heard about dScoop, but maybe they don't know what it's all about.
Sure. Okay. Intro will be brief. I am Dutch. I'm from the Netherlands. I stumbled into printing quite a while back. Then was introduced to the concept of dScoop as they started to expand beyond the US, North America, and wanted to break into the European market. First, I was like, I didn't know anything about dScoop. But then I was like, okay, this is really something very, very cool and very interesting. And that was a while back. So yeah, I ended up now in this position as executive director, which translates to, maybe you call it president, managing director. But at least I have the fortunate opportunity to look after dScoop and report to our board of directors that are all volunteers. And dScoop itself is an interesting phenomenon, right? dScoop is short for Digital Solutions Cooperative. It started actually 20 years ago. It's the 20th anniversary this year. As a pretty extreme idea of a couple of printers using HP Indigo technology back in the day, HP and also suppliers. And they decided that they wanted to pool resources between the three different types of stakeholders to help improve the technology and to break into the industry, right? To convert the industry to digital. And that concept started, as I said, 20 years ago with a small group of people in a room in somewhere in the US. 2006 was their first event. Again, there were a few hundred people that got together. Fast forward to today, it's a global movement. That's not just a once-a-year event. It's every day of the week. 3,000 users and about 100 countries where we are represented now.
Wow. So that's massive. So it started in the US or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It was a group of US customers that got together with HP, and HP said, okay, let's see what we can do to help innovate faster, which is sort of still in the DNA of dScoop, right? You've got HP suppliers to the printers and the printers and converters working together to improve solutions, improve market share, educate print buyers about the power of digital and the potential of digital, because that's what binds these three entities together, is that the bigger the share of digital in print or new applications can come to market, the better it is for all of the members involved. And that includes printers who are competitors, suppliers who are competitors between them, and HP. So that's a bit of you could call it the secret sauce, I think, within dScoop. It really there's a common almost enemy outside, right? Which is the non-digital part of the industry.
Yeah, it's extremely interesting. So, how do you kind of covered a lot of this already, but if you had to describe community in a business context, what is that single definition of what's the because you obviously are accomplishing a lot of things, but if you just had to answer that one question, what is that to you?
I think in a business context, it is competitors that work as one. And I think it's someone that at one of our events, we had a speaker, and he was coming to speak at corporate events, and he has one group of people in the room, and they're all working for the same company. And he stopped middle of his keynote, and he was like, I'm just realizing actually you're all competitors, but I get the vibe that you're working for the same company. So this is this shared interest that this community has, which is the advancement of digital. Clearly in this case, it's HP Digital Printing Technologies to advance that into the market. And that makes competitors work together in that space.
Yeah, I mean, I like that a lot. Definitely where you guys are coming together under, kind of one goal. So that's, I love it.
Yeah, that's incredibly interesting. So is that how you kind of would explain what makes dScoop different? Is that, there's a lot of associations out there. There's a lot of networks out there. There's, events and within the printing space or just within the business world in general. But is that kind of what makes dScoop a little bit different? Is that, that collaboration, that sharing of information, it's not seen as competition, but more collaboration kind of thing?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, our sort of, like our promise is that we connect what we call the mavericks of the print industry to people and ideas that will transform their business. And the mavericks those were the people that invested in this new technology that many people doubted 20 years ago or even longer. And it's actually, that's how it's happening. And I think when I thought about this as well, is what really makes it different from an association. I think it's the unconditional attention of our members. They don't expect, it's not transactional. This collaboration isn't transactional. Isn't, I'll give you this if you give me that. Because that's like a finite type of mindset. And I think that's what I see a lot within our members is this infinite mindset, is this potential of how that can sort of, come to life and how it can benefit them. They're not expecting something like as a transaction. They're thinking, how can we sort of really achieve exponential growth or reach or improvement in our industry? And that applies to many things, such as collaborations on project or, when they work with a supplier and say, hey, let's see how we can do this better.
A very a rising tide lifts all boats mentality in terms of digital versus conventional flexo or other printing styles.
Well, I think they're not so much, focused on the technology as such. It's more about what it enables them and how they see how they can approach things. Because clearly, if you compare digital to analog technologies or other, there's always going to be a reason or a point where one or the other is more beneficial. But I think it depends on how you apply it. Because at the end of the day, it's more like what's the end user trying to achieve and what's the best means to achieve that. And I think many of our members actually are hybrid companies. They have, offset and traditional offset and digital, or they have, flexo and digital, or they have different digital. They're doing lots, and some are 100% digital, or even only HP industrial printed digital. But they're just more focused on the solutions they find for their customers, and then technology is just helps them to provide that.
Would you happen to have a story you could share? Because you mentioned it's not so much a transactional situation, but more members helping each other out. So would you have an example you could share of just how that has come to fruition in the past?
Yeah, I mean, there's different ones, and maybe I'll just share one, which I think speaks to that. What I said before, this unconditional intention, the intent that's behind it. So either our members know each other, or they come through us because they're looking for someone. So the way I explain it to someone that's new or wants to figure out how this works, and it's basically saying, okay, you are looking for someone that can help you do this. And there can be different things, can be in a geography, a different country, a different continent, could be in a different segment, right? You even have, a commercial printer looking to have something flexible packaging produced somewhere else, or even nearby, right? That they don't have their own capability. And here's one example that happened. I get a text message actually from one of our members. And just to explain the context, dScoop is independent from HP. I lead a team of 15 full-time professionals that are dedicated to this community. That's in marketing, that's in working with our suppliers, that is in event production, right? And also in member engagement. And any one of us could get one of these texts that I'm just explaining. So this is a text from someone here in Europe and says, I have a customer that has a project that I need to get fulfilled in the US, somewhere in the US, in a specific state. And he said, who do we know? And I said, well, let me check. So, and obviously we don't know the answers, but we know who knows. So I said, I think this might be a good fit, right? He roughly gives me an estimate and said, this is sort of the things I need. It's not an Excel sheet with fees and costs per impression or something else. No, this is really about people doing business between each other. So I said, I think he might be a good fit. This company might be a good fit. This is the information of the owner. Check out their website and let me know if you think that's useful. And then he pings me back. He said, okay, that's great. Give me an intro. So I do the introduction on email and, we step aside. That's not our business. We don't need to be involved. But the follow-up email was, I have a project for my customer. It's about $200,000 of value. This is the products that I need to get produced. Again, high level. Within 10 minutes, he gets someone from the account team involved. So they swap messages, and he outsources a $200,000 project to someone he hasn't met personally, but it's working through the network, right? So now there is a relationship, and they know each other. So when they come to an event, they visit each other, or when someone is traveling, they go see each other. So this is how that works. And this is one example, what I said before, is unconditional. It's like, I'm not asking you to give me $200,000 back. Now, I've got a $200,000 project that I can help my customer. I can say yes to my customer. And here's a network that I trust. And I think this is where, the trust doesn't get broken, because there is this reciprocity that's in there, but it's not transactional, right? It is something that, okay, if I have something that if I ever need something, you're the first person I'm going to be thinking about.
That's amazing. And I think there's a lot of value for people wanting to be involved in a community like that. So this is 20 years of having dScoop. What do you think, over the last 2 decades, what are some of the key things that help create that community, right? Is it that you're inviting the people that are best in class, or always thinking about innovation, or what are the components that make other members realize that they can trust someone else within the group?
I think that's our members that do that, right? It's the people that are there with the right mindset and the right attitude. I mean, we have been, I used to say we've been accused of being a cult. I think now it's more a badge of honor. We would say, hey, we used to be called a cult, right? And this was because people were like, this is what's happening right within that group, and how does it work? But I think and this is what I see a lot from members when we ask them, okay, why do you engage with dScoop, or what is it that you get out of the event? And it is that leaning in where they come not with an expectation of walking away with a full list of business, but walking away with people that can help them grow in different areas in their business. So I was in the US last week, and we visited one of our members, and we asked her as well. And she said, I now have people I can call with a question anytime in the day. And they helped, she met them at one of our events. She went and visited them within the US and also internationally. But it builds that network that you can say, these people are running businesses in different scales, and sometimes they just don't necessarily know what to do next, or they're running into something, and how do you deal with that? They can pick up the phone and call someone else and say, how do you deal with that? And they talk between themselves. And that's, that sort of definitely goes around, and that circle is growing. I think an important part that keeps it straight in the last 20 years is that one of our founders, a gentleman named Jack Glacken, who talked about this thing 20 years ago about pooling the resources, he still shows up every time. He goes to an event in Italy, he goes to events in the US. Whenever we ask him a question, he's there. And he sort of exemplifies that sort of culture and attitude. There's an award in his name, which is called the Jack Glacken Award, but it's for doing the right thing. It's for a member that has been doing the right thing. And that is also always in that spirit of doing the right thing. Is it for everyone? No. There is people that do not, they don't necessarily buy into it, or they might be skeptical. If they're skeptical, we encourage them to then show up and then see that it's real. But some people have a different perspective on doing business, and this might not be their thing. But I see the ones that are doing that thing and leaning in and showing up for each other. They are, they're growing in different ways. Yes, they're growing maybe the size of their business or profitability or efficiency. So they're growing as a leader. They're growing with their team. They're seeing their teams grow and develop and becoming, really strong people in our industry. So it has multiple ways it manifests. But that core, doing the right thing, is very much there.
It seems so simple, but effective.
Yes, I mean.
Was that a comment or a question, Ken?
It's not as like it's simple in theory, hard in execution.
Yes,
but no doubt effective.
It's deceptively simple because I think at the end of the day, when we ask the members why do they do it, it is because it's the right thing to do. Because this goes back to this founding story of 20 years ago, where the first person that moved to collaborate with HP was Jack. And then HP asked him, I said, Jack, you've got a target on your back now, right? Because you are coming to work with the enemy at that point. And he said, I just have to do it. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing for our industry. It's the right thing for us. It's the right thing for this group to do this. And he stuck with that. And that's I mean, for me, like the work that I get to do with people like Jack and others, that is the guy that makes it deceptively simple. But it also makes it that you work with people and you have people within your community that are advocates and advocate for it, and they lead in that type of almost attitude on how they approach their business.
Yeah, that's great. That's like the definition of a true community. I mean, that's what everyone wants as part of a community, whether it's personal, professional. It's just kind of, the good of all before the good of yourself, helping one another, selfless, gratitude, all these great things.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about everyone's favorite topic lately, which is AI. So our dScoop members leveraging AI in any way? Are they actually utilizing it? Just talking about it? How has that infiltrated dScoop?
I think it's a great question because yes, it's a very hot topic. I think we're fortunate that obviously we have HP as a partner, which clearly has a lot of resource behind developing those types of things. So for us, the collaboration with HP isn't just limited to the printing presses. It's the software and it's the extended part of HP. Obviously, HP Inc. is a huge company, right, with a huge amount of resource that we get to plug in. So it definitely helps our members, when they need resource or think about things in a faster way. It accelerates. I think we've started seeing this a couple of years ago, and it's manifested in different ways. When we were sort of considering to make it like a track at at one of our events, we decided to not do that because we said, no, it's going to be everywhere. So if we create a track and we silo it disconnects from anything, whether it's around how you manage your organization, how you run your business, how you automate your workflows and everything. And so it's everywhere. And that's been very insightful. And we've then had content that has been extremely just on sharing how people are using different things, whether it's, enterprise solutions or just, AIs like a ChatGPT or Claude or other things, just to give it data. And an example was, it was already, I think 2.5 years ago, we had an event and we had someone speak around AI and how you could use it in your business. And so then she was sharing ideas. Okay, here's what you could do. You could give it your order portfolio from the last 3 years, and have it analyzed for forecasting, resourcing, and supply and demand. And we've had other sessions where an owner just shares how he's using these AIs to help him develop strategies and think about things, using it as a thinking partner. And then we had a company that talked about how they would use AI in in a creative way. This is in packaging. And it was, you need to create, samples for your customers, for your prospects. Now, okay, you can use sample packaging and say this is sample packaging, but you can also then they were using AI to really craft a brand that would fit with their prospect and would produce sample packaging. So generative AI. And so there's lots of different ways that it comes to life. And even last week, we did it at our event in Long Beach in May 2025. We brought in non-printing AI type of companies around, go-to-market and customer service and different ways. So it opens up that perception and that spectrum. And even last week, we had a session on that topic, customer feedback and customer voices using, enhanced by AI. But there was also someone from HP Industrial Marketing, the head of industrial marketing, speaking about how HP sees that, right, and sharing that type of perspective and expertise. So it's in many places.
So I mean that's awesome, and I want to hear more. But I just, as you were talking, so you have your events. Like, what other ways does your community stay in touch with each other? Like, you're just talking about, you had a session. Like, is that a regular? Like, do you guys get together and talk regularly?
Yeah. So a couple of things. So as I mentioned, 20 years ago, they founded this group called dScoop, short for Digital Solution Cooperative. Then they launched like a founding event, and then that ballooned into more and multiple and bigger events. And then we always had an online platform, which was okay, but it wasn't sort of ideal for community engagement. And so we relaunched that a couple of years back, and that's really been a catalyst because we can host online events, very easily. We have forums, we have articles, videos. So in 2 years, I think we've amassed. We're approaching 1,000 pieces of content. So articles and videos from our community. So these are our members coming with a story, whether they write it themselves or videos or different things. And that just creates that sort of connection between them on a day-to-day basis. Clearly, you see it's a business. This business oriented. So on the weekends, it's kind of quieter, but still ongoing. But it allows an operator, if he's running on a press, maybe even on Saturday morning in South Africa, is running into an issue. He can reach out to other members and say, I have this issue, posting a photo, whatever is the challenge, and someone else, would be online and could help them solve that. But that online, so we have online and in-person events. So we can, on an annual basis, we can do anything between, 10, 12 in-person events, anything from a huge big conference like we do annually in the US. We're bringing it back to Europe next year, but also from smaller gatherings that are more regional or even very, very local. 10, 20 people in a bar in Germany.
That's cool. Thank you for clarifying that, because your frequency, like, it affects how you manage, curate content and get people together, right? Like, it's not waiting for some big event once a year. Like, there are just ongoing topics and ongoing engagement that just help enrich, the not only the breadth of content that you cover, but the depth, because it's not just one big event a year.
Yeah.
So
well, and if I may add as well, Kenneth, it also allows us to reach members that don't always get to travel to the events, because you do see clearly since 4 or 5 years, obviously with COVID, that has changed substantially, where it's more the owners, or executives that get to go to the in-person events. But doing things online allows us to connect with operators or to connect with people within an organization and be more drawn to a subject that might not always get to go to the in-person event. So you sort of, yes, you can go deeper into specific topics, or you can also go broader inside the member companies that we have.
And then, I think one of the questions we had for you was separating kind of the hype from the actual value of AI. But I think in some ways you described that where you made that decision not to create a specific AI track. It's more of just a component of all of the current tracks. Is that part of how you focused on doing that? Or, maybe you can speak to that a little bit. Like, how do you focus on signal over noise, I guess is the...
Well, I mean, that's the challenging part, right? So how strong does the signal need to be for us to act on it?
Yes.
And this, I think, is kind of interesting because the signal can be small, but if there is a very motivated group that likes the signal, right, that responds to it and wants to talk about it, then, we can attract those and bring them together and create value for them. So as I mentioned before, this session we did, I think it was already probably maybe 2 years ago, what I mentioned. This is a label and packaging company, and they were using generative AI to create these sample packs for their prospects. That attracted, people much more in the creative space rather than people running, production managers or something else from different companies. And I think that's where we see, I borrowed this from someone else that mentioned that at some point, is scaling intimacy, right? The intimacy of a community is sort of, it depends. If we get 1,500 people in a conference center, it could be considered an intimate setting because many people know each other, or at least they know one person that knows someone else. So they're pretty close knit, right? It's not 6 degrees of separation, but it's only not that they know everyone. Signals are for us really fascinating, and that's something we see where it really, if we put the right topic on an agenda, it attracts. What we're trying to do is attract the right people, because you can argue, oh, it's great if we get 1,000 people talking about the same subject, but if you get 50 people to speak very passionately about a subject and actually add value for those 50 people, so everyone walks away with something that was interesting. I mean, there's different balances of power in that case. I think both are valuable because you can create momentum with 1,000, but those 50 can be equally influential, and it works as well in the ripple effect for our other members, because if we then can craft some stories out of that, it could inspire someone else, right? And again, that sort of triggers that network effect that is really, really powerful.
Yeah, and I love that you said scaling intimacy, because I think
you've said that term before, Ken. I swear.
I've been saying that for over a decade or more, because I think as we adopt technology, it's very easy to lose kind of the personal connection, and with being focused on creating this frictionless experience. Everyone wants a frictionless experience, and you can kind of dehumanize the entire transaction or relationship. But I don't think many humans really want that. They really do want a more personalized connection without the friction. So you have to find ways to remove the friction while also, enriching the connection. And that's where the scaling intimacy idea comes from, is like treat everyone as a human without some of the deficiencies that human connections can create, right? So it's a delicate balance, but I appreciate that he said that.
Yeah, and maybe just as a follow up on what you're saying. So one, I didn't hear it first from you. I heard it first from the provider from our platform, a company in the US. But if we ask our members what was the most valuable experience at our event, in many cases it's those hallway conversations, the people that they bump into. They come to the event with a fear of missing out. Oh, what's happening next? And I need to get away from my desk because I need to be there, because I know that's where I have a very high likelihood of picking up on what it is. And it's not necessarily in a keynote session or speaking to a high profile person. It in many cases happens in speaking to someone that you bump into in that hallway, and that triggers a conversation that sparks ideas that they could do, or as it also happens, it leads to project like I just described, or mergers and acquisitions even in that case, because people also come when they're not desperate for new ideas. They're really desperate for saving or protecting what is dear to their heart. If they're having challenges in their business, they also come to our event because they know there's people there that can sort of think with them and help them and potentially troubleshoot or recommend what they should do. And that's happened many times as well, where there are stories of people come to our event, which is almost the last thing that they can spend their money on. but they walk away with a plan to sort of, save their business.
So just kind of, and I kind of put us on a tangent away from AI. I mean, do you have any predictions in terms of AI? Like, obviously, you're managing a community of really intelligent, driven people within the digital print community. It's kind of an interesting subset of people that are probably leading, AI thinkers and enablers. Are you seeing anything that you want to give a prediction on where you think it's going or where you don't think it's going?
No, I don't think I'm going to do predictions. I don't think I'm designed for that. Because again, as I've experienced with dScoop, things that you think might happen, are not going to happen because something, way different has come up and they've taken that. But I think, what I do see happening, and then this is maybe an answer to your question as well, is seeing how not in the wrong sense of the word, but how practical the industry is in implementing AI in a very quick and efficient way. They're not messing around in this case. They're not sort of, no, they're actually doing things, right? They're doing their forecasting, they're doing their estimating, they're planning their resource. There was a company that I talked to a couple of months ago, and they were actually, what they were doing is they were using the knowledge of all the employees and creating their own sort of, language model almost of, okay, now I can AI, our collective brain, and they could move faster and serve customers better. Clearly others, obviously in the workflow and the generative AI part, are doing lots of different things. So I see them as well, not just, yes, they're being strategic about it and smart about where is the biggest gains for them, whether that's in their go-to-market, you see it permeating, you see it in their production organization, and you see it in things where there's like even just processing orders. We're as we're recording, it's peak season for e-commerce printers, right? They are processing hundreds of thousands of orders on a daily basis, and they have to have very tight SLAs and have to be very strict. So they're looking at that data and really being mindful of, okay, what is happening, and they can listen to signals a little bit more upstream so they know what's coming, right? And they can see where their bottlenecks are in their process, whether it's in the printing or in the finishing or in other processes. So I see that they're using it to enhance their business. They're not necessarily in the process of replacing anything else, as you see in the tech industry. At the end of the day, one of our members talks a lot about how we make things, right? How the industry really makes physical things, tangible things that add a huge amount of value. So yes, there can be AI to enhance how it's being created and produced and manufactured and shipped. But the physical thing isn't going to be replaced in that space.
So dScoop's been around for roughly 20 years. The hope, I would imagine, is it's around for 20 more and then 20 more beyond that. Well, to achieve something like that, you need young people, right? And we've talked to other business leaders, and attracting young talent within the printing industry can be a challenge. So maybe share some things or challenges that dScoop members are facing with the younger generation, getting them excited about our industry and retaining them and everything that goes with finding talent and retaining it and just the future.
Yeah. So we have a history of engaging certainly in the US with different schools, universities, right? They've always been part of our community and attending our activities. And I think it was 7 or 8 years ago, we decided, hey, we need to do things differently. We don't need to invite students to come to our event, give them a t-shirt and have them hand out things. No, we need them to come to our event, still give them the t-shirt, but have them really go through a comprehensive program as an attendee of our event and speak to our members and engage with our members, but also, network, right? Because that's the way it goes. And, we work with a gentleman called Mike Ferrari, who's well known in the packaging industry, and he helped design that program and has built it to where it is today. So that means every year at a conference we have about 50 students participate from 7 or 8 schools. We sponsor their registration, we sponsor their accommodation, and and we have them participate in the event. They actually speak in a session in our in an event in Long Beach this year. We had them introduce a keynote speaker. We actually had them introduce a new initiative from one of our members, which is a grants program that we're partnering on with HP. So dScoop and HP are putting up $50,000 every year, where students can apply, and the other members can donate to it on a year-round basis. We'll be introducing that shortly. And the purpose of that is to enable students to travel to our events, or to attend our events, or to travel to other PSPs and converters and for an internship. So enabling that. But what it's done, I think it's definitely that it's one of the best attended sessions at our conference, where the students are on stage in a panel and the audience is business owners and thinking, how am I going to do this? And there is friction. There is a gap in expectation and what it could do. But here's how it's impacted directly. So these students, they get hired by our members, right? So they network. We prepare them up front. The schools prepare them up front. They show up educated. They show up motivated, and they bring a level of energy that is quite unique. And when they see the people inside that industry, they're like, oh, I had in some cases, they had a different perception of what the industry is like. And then they see the people, and then they see the high tech, and then they see the AI, and they see all the capabilities and the tactile things. They get very excited. The biggest excitement is the people, right? They meet other people. They can talk to anyone in the industry. They can speak to, the head of HP Industrial Print. They can speak to an influential CEO of a print business or of a finishing company somewhere. And and that's how they network. And so they get hired by our members. And then that also then leads, again, one of those signals, Kenneth, we talked about. I was listening to one of our members. Her name is Betsy Davis. She's the CMO of a company called Sandy Alexander in the US. It's a pretty notable printing business. She talked in her podcast about how they hired someone, a younger person, and how it made them basically revamp their onboarding process. And they went into a reverse mentoring program. And I'm like, that's really interesting. Can we talk about that? So she said, sure. So we have this session, and she talks about how it's influencing their people, their company, the culture, but also the people that are older, right? That may be in the company for 10 or 20 years or 30 years. They suddenly, their knowledge and expertise gets flipped on its head in a really good way, where they're like, they are a resource for this young person, right? They shadow them for a while. So the older people learn about the newer people coming in, and it influences the culture, right? And the other way around, it's also extremely influential. So you create a whole different dynamic, and I think that's really the way forward. What I took away from that session is, I think there is fear on both sides. Fear in the younger generation. What am I walking into? There's fear on the existing industry population. We can't attract the right people, and maybe it's because we are not communicating or positioning ourselves in the right way, so it becomes attractive, right, for those younger people. Because when they actually see and talk to the people, there is a huge amount of energy and appreciation and interest to come into this industry, and there's a lot that they can do and change.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting, and I love kind of the idea of pairing kind of the more seasoned, I don't want to say older, the more seasoned members of the community with the younger members, because you're right. I think fear can drive more fear, right? It's easy to just start identifying, collecting like, oh, we don't have enough of this, or they don't like that, where maybe dScoop in particular is at an advantage of, if we just get everybody in a room together or get them in a community together, everyone's nice and productive and wants to, add value. So if we just get them into a room, there's probably a lot more similarities between each other and much more places to collaborate than not. Yep. Everybody wins. So that is, I think that's, I love it.
I mean, everyone still needs to work for it. It's not that you walk into a room. Yes, people are nice in the sense that they listen to each other, right? But they also give each other feedback. And you see this sometimes. Someone joins the event. I've mentioned this before, where there's some people that it's not their thing, but it's almost like shared dining, which you now have, right? It's very popular. And yeah, some people don't like that. So they're like, no, this is my food. Don't touch my food, right? So, and I think this community is very similar. And sometimes it converts people from, it's actually quite cool to share my food because now I get to taste different things,
Yes.
and I get to get new ideas and see things maybe in a different way. Even from a student that's, coming along and asking, why are you doing this? Or why are you doing it this way?
Yeah, I love that analogy. Share some food. I like to share my food.
Depends on the restaurant, though.
I don't know if Randy likes sharing his food.
Sometimes I'm out to eat with my wife, and she wants one thing and I want the other, and she asked if she wants to share, and I said, well, if I wanted to share, I would order what you're getting. I really want what I'm getting today, but other times I'll share. So it just depends on the restaurant and the mood I'm in. But I love the analogy; it's great.
No, it was actually a story that I not about the food, by the way, but it was one of my first dScoop event I attended when I joined the dScoop organization was in 2011 in Singapore, and Alain Barchani, who was then the GM of HP Indigo, he was speaking, and he used a quote. I think I'm not sure which Irish poet it is, but it is around the sharing of the sharing, right? So he shared, okay, if I have an apple and you have an apple and we share, we still both have one apple. But if I have one idea and you have one idea and we share, now we both walk away with two ideas, right? And I think those are, again, it's deceptively simple in its concept, but it does change your mind when you actually process and get what that means. And I think this is where community is great. Again, these events are important because people rub shoulders and they bump into each other. But you see, there's very successful larger corporations that show up, but they show up because they're like, I need to talk to everyone because everyone in this room can have an idea, big or small, that can help me, right? And that's the type of attitude I think that gets people there in the right mindset.
I mean, I love it because, in my experience within the print and packaging space, I mean, maybe not so much now, but previously, everything was seen, I want to say more artistic, but everyone had their own secret sauce. Like when I was trying to get a case study from someone, no one wanted to share their process. Right. When I want to highlight a particular win, but they're afraid of kind of letting their competitors see how they're doing it, even though they're not particularly doing anything that anyone else isn't doing, but they didn't want to give one piece of information that might help one of their competitors if it's a configuration or a specific speed or any of the variables. And that ultimately, I think, hurts everyone. If you think one small thing that you're doing is going to give you your competitive advantage, because that means nobody's sharing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's different perspectives on that, right? I mean, clearly it's not that, everyone is sharing everything. There's always levels of what they're sharing. But what we see, for example, when we do these more regional events, we just did like 4 we did one in Thailand, one in Medellin, Colombia, one in Bangalore, India, one in Milan, Italy. And there's always a component of site visits in there, visiting other people's factories. And yeah, you can pick up a lot of things from that. But it's also interesting when you see two, executives walking through each other's factory, and they're talking about something they're talking about something that looks relatively tiny, and maybe not fascinating. They're not looking at the big workflows or anything else. They're picking up something and they're talking about something really specific. Yeah, and they walk away with some great ideas of what they could do differently. But yeah, I mean, there are levels of sharing. I totally agree. But certainly in the conversations that happen in those hallways, there's a lot of very intentional and very open discussions that happen. Or, they invite a person over, come to my factory and I'll show you how we do this.
So, I mean, under that same idea, do you see, are the leaders that are more community driven and sharing, do you think they're more successful, or they're being more successful? Like, could you, at a high level, do you see like that value being unlocked? Like, is that, you're managing a large community and there's power in the community? Do you see that the leaders that are more involved and more sharing doing better?
Yes and no. It depends, I think, on the type of business you run, right? But I definitely know we have members and they're very vocal about it. About 20% of their business can be attributed to their connections through the community. 30%, 40%, 50%, or they've been able to grow their business into with global reach, which is another aspect of, I think, of our network, is that you can deliver something printed anywhere on the planet in the next day. I had an example of that text message from a PSP. I have a customer need something really just totally not interesting, like a little card, single side printed, just black text. That was it. But can I need someone to deliver this tomorrow morning in Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia. And so, that can happen. But I think, yes, you see the ones that are leaning in more, they're getting more ideas, right? They're sharing and they're getting more ideas. That's the whole concept. And it can be a small idea that has a huge impact on their business. It can be a huge idea that has a small impact on their business. But whether it's culture, productivity, efficiency, customers, winning customers, collaborating for customers, sharing investments, there could be all kinds of mergers, acquisitions, as I said before. There's different things that happen in that space. But the bottom line, if you lean in, you have a higher potential. We do survey our members, right? So we ask our members. There's this concept called community-driven impact score, which was developed by a gentleman named Richard Millington, a company called Feverbee in the UK. He's a community consultant. And it's, okay, this is always a challenge, right? How do you value the return on community? And he built a model, which is community-driven impact score. There's a formula for it. And essentially you're asking, about NPS, of course, or CSAT. But this question asks, on a scale of 1 to 10, how is your, in our case, dScoop engagement influence your business, right? And it's 1, no influence, to 10, very influential. And that sits roughly at about 8 out of 10 of surveyed members. And then we ask a question, and that's really important on this concept of community. How does your engagement influence your intentions to buy? Because we have a supplier community from our suppliers. That's a similar number. And then obviously the third one is, how does it influence your intentions to buy more HP products or services? And that's also around 8. So there is again, it's more buying intent than anything else, right? We do not track deals, we do not track investments and everything else, but it just speaks to the willingness of what happens. And you see that at an event where there is a supplier, just, a supplier in the printing space. They have a presence at our event. Yes, they, like at a trade show, their people would talk to their potential prospects and customers. What happens at dScoop is that an existing customer walks over with a competitor and says, I'm using this product or solution. I think you should take a look, because what we were just talking about, I think that makes a lot of sense for you to have a look at. And then suddenly, so that's that environment that you have, Again, that happens with the people with the right mindset. It requires the suppliers to not sit in the back of their booth on their phone and be out there and network, and everyone needs to come with an open mind.
I love that.
Yeah, that's outstanding. And I think, it comes across as kind of like a no-brainer, but you go to tons of events and you see people just sitting on a phone in a booth, looking down. It's like, does the boss's boss know what those people are doing in the booth right now? I don't think they'd appreciate that if they saw that, right? But we all see it. We see it all the time.
Yeah. Yes.
So Peter, I'll put you on the spot here then. If all the listeners walked away and did one thing differently when it comes to community, because we talked a lot about community today, what do you think that would be?
Can you just repeat that question one more time so I can let it sink in?
Yeah. If people listening to this episode, if they could walk away and do one thing differently when it comes to community, what would that be? Are people leveraging it, using it as a strategic advantage enough? You shared a lot of stories and good insight today, but if you just had to pick one thing that you'd recommend to people and the power of community, what would you suggest to them?
I would say lean in. I think leaning in is really important, and leaning in means different things, right? Leaning in means, putting aside some time on your calendar and making the investment to come to our events, because our members pay their own way. Right? They pay their own travel, pay their own accommodation, and pay their own access to attend. So it's not a simple decision to just go. It requires resource, right? And it requires a decision to make time. And it requires leaning in. Is also means you need to think about what you want to achieve, and you need to prepare, because that's how you get the most out of it. Clearly, we're more than an in-person event, but at the in-person event, you get to connect with others, and that's the trigger that changes your mindset. And that's what I said before. Then you walk in, you bump into people that you can now pick up the phone and ask a challenging question. If you do not lean in, and that's the bigger concept, you're not going to get it, right? Because it doesn't come to you. You need to, lean in and listen. You need to lean in and be part of it. You don't have to act and do exactly as everyone else is doing, but you need to come in with an open mind, with a curious mind, and also thinking, okay, I'm hearing to this person talking. You see this as well, right? They sit in the back of the room, they start writing notes, and then after 2 pages, they're like, I actually have an opinion about what this person is saying. Maybe I should speak up. And I have this as well. Like when you're in a group and I was always like, okay, I'm not going to ask this question because I think it's a stupid question. It turns out it's not a stupid question, and it just enriches the conversation. And this is this confidence you need to have. And again, the concept of leaning in and having an open mind. I think that's just so important.
I've made a whole career of asking the stupid question. So
yeah. No, I think that's just so important. Couldn't ask for more, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't just apply to business. Like we were talking before, I said we started sending our kids to a different school like 4 years ago. And as well, if you don't start joining committees or volunteering or getting involved, then you can't complain about not being able to forge friendships and relationships within this school community, right? If you're not leaning in and joining and being a part of things, then what are you doing, right?
Yeah. Well, people want to be part of a village. I wrote about this the other day, right? But do they want to be a villager? Which is exactly what you're saying, right? And there's a lot that we can learn from that. I don't know what would you guys do when you go to an event or a show, right? So do you just go quietly and snoop around, or do you actually lean into conversations where suddenly you walk away with way more than you initially were thinking you would get?
I mean, I'm a leaner. I like to I get involved and it's enjoyable to me. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy all of it. So that's I really focus on just trying to make the most of it. Like even when it's difficult, like I have that's part of Annie and I are friends because both of us we leaned in, and it was like, hey, what are you doing now? It's and asking questions. And some of my best relationships from an industry perspective and really just in life now have been from showing up to an event with sometimes a specific agenda, sometimes just want to make the most of it. So let's try to have a good time and learn something. And I think that's very good advice.
Well, Peter, we always give guests a chance to plug something, whatever it is they might want to plug. And I mean, so feel free to plug something, excuse me, or, where can people learn more about dScoop? Where are some of the upcoming events? Where can people learn more about your community?
Sure. So, I mean, anyone that wants to learn more about dScoop, go to dscoop.com, which is our landing page. There's a join dScoop button. Have a look at that. There's a lot of information already in the public. Definitely some benefits for those that operate HP equipment to get their profile, which is free for them, right? They can access. And you'll get, you'll stay up to date on what we're doing, because that's one way we are doing that as well, Kenneth, is sending a weekly newsletter to our members with always fresh content. I think my marketing team, Chris and Darren, will definitely give me a pinch if I'm saying I think we're over 300 volumes, so 300 consecutive Mondays, if not mistaken, at least 250 or something, huge numbers. And then the other part is our in-person events. And the next opportunity is March 8 to 11, 2026 at the Gaylord Rockies Resort and Convention Center in Colorado. Beautiful venue, but that's where our flagship Edge event will take place. 3 days of keynotes, education, breakout sessions with members sharing their stories, and a showcase with HP digital print equipment and 70 or 80 suppliers sharing their innovations and ideas, and a decent doses of fun. But people that you'll be able to meet there are those that are leaning in and are very welcoming for people that are coming for the first time, and make sure they have the right experience and walk away with more ideas than they thought of initially, and with the motivation to not just put them on a stack when they get to their desk after the conference, but actually now roll up their sleeves and do something about it.
All right.
Very cool.
Well, rapid fire questions, Ken. What do you think? Rapid fire to close it out here?
Yeah. What's your favorite brand?
Yeah, you're on Unpacking the Brand, so we gotta hit you up with this stuff. I mean,
yes, my favorite brand. I don't know if it's the right brand, but it's a Dutch brand, and it's called Dopper. Basically, it sells water bottles, but it's from recycled materials, and they're filling stations. You fly through Amsterdam Airport, you can fill your water bottles. So this is always a gift. If I travel, I obviously have my own, but also it's a great gift to give because it helps, a certain level of protection of the planet we live on. So I'm a big fan of that brand.
How do you spell that?
Dopper. Dopper.
Learn something new every day. All right. Opposite end of the spectrum. Least favorite brand.
So this isn't any grief I have with this brand, but it's I don't wear jeans. I'm known for I think my team coined the term Peter's pants a couple of years ago. So these are very bright blue pants I wear, which is a trick I learned from someone about speaking and going to events. Wear something that people notice. So it's these pants and orange shoes. But because I don't wear jeans, I thought, okay, then Levi's is probably a brand I don't like. Not that I don't like Levi's. It's just I don't wear jeans. So
I do like that. Yeah, I'm going to start wearing bright pants.
I've been saying that for years, Rennie. I think you need to wear some brighter pants.
Yeah, I got to lose about 15 pounds so they fit better. But all right, we're not going to go off on that tangent now. What about a great book you've read recently? It doesn't have to be business. I mean, it could be, but just a recommendation you'd make for the listeners. Some, book, article, something you've consumed recently that you think would be useful for others.
Yes. Well, I'm going to be very biased in this case because we had her as a keynote speaker at our event in Long Beach. Her name is Erin Meyer, and she wrote No Rules, which is the book on Netflix. It's how Netflix is organized and how it's established a culture of that organization. And what I found fascinating was the feedback we got from people right after that session. This was very timely. This is very important. This is something that they could implement ideas straight away into their business. Again, the culture thing. It's not technical. It's not printing. It's about the culture of a company. And the book was fascinating. I read it already a while back, and because we are as a group a remote organization, we've implemented some of those ideas in how we are organized. And mind you, we're all remote, right? So I work from home and the rest of the team works from home. And one of my team members actually was reflecting on her event experience because we obviously prepare the event as a team, we run the event as a team, but we also experience the event as a team. So we get to sit in those sessions. And she was sitting in that session and said, we do this. And we do that. Oh, and this is also something that we do, right? So she asked me, she said, you read the book before, eh? And I said, yes, I did. But these are just really practical things that you don't need to be a company like Netflix at the size of Netflix. You can get ideas from it. And I thought it was super accessible, well written, and very, very practical for anyone in a company, whether you run a company, own it, or a part of it. There are just great ideas you can get out of it.
I'll check it out for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I've not heard of that one, but let's see. Netflix is a giant at the moment, so yeah.
Oh, well, that's even now a bigger giant, right? With
Warner Brothers,
the intended
right?
acquisition of Warner Brothers. Yeah. But that what I like about the book, and sometimes you read a book and you have to sort of really adopt a whole new way of thinking and implement the framework or anything else. Now here you can pick and choose different ideas that you think, okay, I can do it right away.
Awesome.
Well, I think that does it for today. You've been awesome, Peter. Great insight. Really impressed with dScoop and how you guys are working together as a community, and love some of the stories.
Yeah, no, definitely appreciate you coming on and talking about it. I feel like we could probably talk for hours more. Like I just out of my own curiosity, and like it's fascinating to me, and so just congratulations on the success of dScoop, and we're excited for you, and hope to stay in touch and maybe have you back on in a year and see how things are going.
Definitely. Well, I would say thanks for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation. So really thought-provoking questions, and I will pass on your compliments to our community members and our sponsors and HP, because they are the ones that lead the charge. I think there's this watch, the very expensive watch that I think it's a Swiss brand. You don't own it, you merely look after it for future generations. That's a little bit how I feel about dScoop as well. It's a bit of a treasure, and we need to make sure it stays and it can grow in the direction it should grow.
Awesome, I love that.
And happy to come back if that's of any interest. Or we can have a side conversation offline, Kenneth. No worries at all.
All right, sounds good. I might hit you up on that.
All of the above, yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us on Unpacking the Brand. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation. And if you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you have a moment, we'd love it if you could share this podcast with your network or leave us a review. It really helps us reach more people who are passionate about business, branding, and innovation.